Beneath the main corridor's gravity dampeners, the hum remained constant. Binary starlight filtered through the primary viewport, one blue, one red. Every surface carried two distinct shadows. Operating as the head instructor of xenocombat methodology for 40 years, processing 11,000 cadets across 90 species was my baseline. I have published 6 textbooks on the subject. Specimen Juno arrived 3 weeks prior, presenting with unremarkable physical metrics, minimal height, curled hair. She initiated a social bonding protocol with Cadet Pip, a quillith, by transferring a preserved biological structure, a pressed flower. The quillith absorbed it into its translucent gelatinous mass, leaving the flora clearly visible through the outer membrane. Earth tradition, the human documented. I classified it as a harmless social exchange. The events I am about to outline forced a complete recalculation of our disciplinary parameters. You should listen carefully to this sequence. Evolutionary data sets categorize humans as persistence predators. This classification indicates their ancestors did not secure biological targets through velocity, but by maintaining pursuit until the target experienced catastrophic exhaustion. That specific neurological architecture translates into a behavioral framework. Humans do not forget. Time does not degrade their chemical responses. It refines them. It is a tactical anomaly I initially failed to quantify. The incident occurred precisely 3 weeks into the term. 3 Dre cadets, THRN, Vosk, and Geldra, heavy armored center analogs. They cornered Cadet Pip in a low-gravity sector. Quillith physiology functions as an empathic broadcast matrix. When they experience trauma, every organic neural receptor within a 15 m radius involuntarily overloads. The Dre initiated this sensory cascade strictly for recreational stimulation. Cadet Pip was confined to medical isolation for 48 hours. The biological structure inside its membrane had degraded structurally due to the quillith's stress hormone saturation. Specimen Juno entered the medical bay. She remained stationary for 60 minutes. She provided no verbal input. Upon exiting, she engaged facial muscles in a configuration known as a smile. My bioluminescent cardiovascular network involuntarily flashed yellow. In Morvan physiology, this chromatic shift indicates severe cognitive dissonance and immediate caution. The geometry of that expression contained anomalous data. I distinctly remember noting that my nutritional supplement container was still sitting on my desk. I focused on the container's metallic sheen for 14 seconds rather than process the implications of the human's facial configuration. Over the subsequent 48 hours, the human attended every instructional module. She documented everything. Then she approached my podium. Instructor, Drowry anterior leg joints. They pivot inward under lateral pressure. Correct. Page 412. I confirmed the standard anatomy and the posterior joints. They lock at full extension stabilization mechanism. My vascular network shifted toward the orange spectrum. Anise, I have exactly 3 years remaining until mandatory retirement and I require a complication-free clinical exit. Thank you, instructor. Very helpful. She was completely unarmed. Well, she was carrying my reference textbook, which ultimately served as the most destructive variable in the resulting sequence. I reviewed the auditory data of her inquiry. The questions were benign. I need to correct that statement immediately. The questions were precisely targeted. Anterior pivot vulnerability. Posterior locking mechanism. The dataset indicated zero aggression, only the thermal suppressed cold precision typically observed in apex predators systematically cataloging structural flaws prior to physical engagement. She was not preparing for an academic evaluation. She was actively constructing a highly specific tactical anatomical schematic of the 3 armored cadets who had damaged her bonded companion. Just observing and mapping data streams compounded exponentially within my primary cognitive center as she exited the corridor. And the mathematical probability of a severe parameter breach approaching absolute certainty indicated that whatever action she planned to execute would permanently fracture the established regulations of this facility. For the first time in 11 cycles, my vascular network flushed entirely red. The training hall scheduling matrix indicated a designated free sparring session. Specimen Juno registered her numeric identifier. The 3 Drowry cadets registered. Subsequently, I analyzed the timestamp intervals. It was not a coincidence. She secured her position 3 hours before they accessed the terminal. She anticipated their arrival. I established a communication link with Director Thrick, intending to request an immediate suspension of the session. He asked for confirmation of an actionable physical threat. I could not provide one. Inquiring about skeletal anatomy and participating in a mandatory session does not constitute a regulatory violation. I terminated the link. The randomized algorithm paired Juno with THRYNN, the specific cadet who had physically restrained Pip. Above the mat, the wall screen displayed the continuous medical telemetry from the isolation ward. Pip's translucent form rotated in the digital feed. The degraded flower was clearly visible within its core. Juno diverted her optical focus to the screen for a fraction of a second. She then faced the Drowry. Her cardiovascular monitor registered a stable 64 beats per minute. She was physiologically calmer than the observing instructor. TRYN initiated a standard forward assault. 300 kilograms of armored biological mass accelerating rapidly. She spoke before impact. "Did you touch my friend?" TRN vocalized amusement, maintaining his trajectory. Juno executed a lateral displacement of 40 centimeters. Her appendage secured a grip on THRN's anterior leg joint. Page 412. She applied a torsional inversion. The joint failed structurally. The center analog collapsed. Vosk engaged from her peripheral blind spot. Juno absorbed the kinetic transfer, sliding backward across the synthetic material. Utilizing his own 4-legged momentum, she executed a flawless hip throw. 280 kilograms became airborne, then impacted the floor. Geldra remained stationary. Juno simply rotated her cranium. She just looked. Geldra's posterior legs locked at maximum extension. An involuntary paralysis dictated by Drowry survival instincts. He initiated a verbal surrender. Juno adjusted her uniform. Same principle, different planet. Cadet RYX elevated his recording device. "I must document this. No one will believe the telemetry." My vascular network flashed red at maximum luminosity. I stepped onto the synthetic surface. The mat was scuffed where THRN had fallen. I noted the black rubber mark. Analyzing the specific chemical solvents required to remove it, a temporary cognitive shield against what had just occurred. The subsequent investigation required me to make a definitive formal choice, forcing an internal calculation between documenting the human's highly calculated, premeditated tactical targeting, which would legally mandate her immediate expulsion, or reporting solely the initial Drowry abuse of an empathic species. I chose to report the Drowry. Director Thessick will notice the discrepancy. My 40-year reputation for strict, impartial clinical observation has been permanently compromised by my own deliberate action. I am an apex predator. I possess 6 primary bioluminescent arteries and active infrared vein mapping. Later, she called me cute because my veins had flushed pink. I reviewed the Earth database. Class 12 Deathworld. Persistence predators. They do not sprint. They outlast. A threat to a bonded companion triggers protective aggression. No documented upper limit. She waited 48 hours. She acquired the data. She dismantled 3 armored combatants in 90 seconds. This was not rage. This was architecture. A revised policy soon categorized empathic harm as a Category 1 offense, instituted directly after a human demonstrated the alternative. Inside the nutrition sector, the Quillith floated, projecting a healthy blue aura. The preserved flora inside its core pulsed in synchronization. Vital Juno and Pip generated auditory signals of amusement over cultivated fungi. I observed them. My vascular network remained a steady blue. A glowing flower inside a translucent membrane. 2 laughing specimens and dual shadows cast upon the deck. They were overlapping.